Most guys who are addicted to adult sites feel that they have been so desensitized by all that supernormal stimuli that they can no longer enjoy the smaller things in life. So in this video I'm going to show you 5 new ways to help reverse that desensitization so you can once again start enjoying your day-to-day living. Scandinavian Bob here, hi. Yeah, real voice and person behind this video, who has been involved in the porn addiction community for 13 years now and helped hundreds of guys quit for good. So if you're tired of all these fake AI robots out there, consider subscribing. Okay, so let's take a look at effective ways to upregulate your dopamine D2 receptors. And by the way, when I say upregulate receptors, that is actually by definition reversal of desensitization. In other words, healing your numb pleasure response. Number 1 is high intensity interval training. And so now you say, oh come on Bob, there's nothing new about that. But hold on a minute here, because I'm going to show you a table with exact optimal amount you need in just a second. Because did you know that if you do too much of it, you will actually start to downregulate your receptors, even under your normal baseline? Yeah, and no one on YouTube talks about this, which pisses me off, because they just say physical exercise upregulates your receptors, which it does, yes, but not if you do it the wrong way. For example, a 2019 study in the Journal of Neuroscience found that rats exposed to 6 weeks of daily forced high interval training with no rest days showed a 20% downregulation of their dopamine D2 receptors and anhedonia-like behaviors. And if you didn't know, anhedonia is the inability to feel pleasure or joy. Now, of course, daily high-interval training is way too much. Everyone already knows that. So now you're probably asking, exactly where is the limit then? What is the sweet spot? Well, good question. And the evidence point to, as a rule of thumb, if you go over 60 minutes of total high-intensity interval training per week without 48 hours of recovery in between your sessions, you are putting yourself in the risk zone. Take a look at these evidence-based guidelines in this table for you to see. As you can see, 2 to 3 times a week at about 80 to 90% of max heart rate in intervals over 20 to 30 minutes seems to be the optimal amount, where one can expect about a 15 to 25% upregulation, which is a lot when it comes to receptors. And if you go above that, you risk starting to plateau with no upregulation happening at all despite your hard work. And if you go higher still, you can actually start losing dopamine receptors, so much so that you go 10 to 20% under a normal baseline. Ouch, that is not good. By the way, this table is a synthetic summary derived from a meta-analysis of both rat and human studies. So it's not a direct copy from any one single study. And here I also have to point out, if you are not used to exercising at all, you have to go way under even the first one and build your way up to it as your fitness levels increase. Number 2 is abstinence from dopamine depleting behaviors. Yes, studies have shown that this can upregulate your D2 receptors by 15 to 30% after just a few weeks. Now this is amazing, as it's even more effective than high intensity interval training. And perhaps some of you now go, but what do they mean by abstinence from dopamine depleting behaviors? Well, that's dopamine fasting right there. That's what it is. Dopamine fasting is the most effective way to help speed up receptor upregulation that you can do. And what's so cool about this is that it's strongly backed by peer-reviewed science with direct quantitative evidence from rodent models, genetic intervention studies, and human PET imaging. Number 3 is omega-3 fatty acids. Yes, omega-3 fatty acids supports dopamine D2 density and sensitivity 5 to 10% via membrane effects. Now, unlike high interval exercise, this one is such an easy one to implement, as all you have to do is to eat plenty of fish. Or, if you don't want to do that, you can always buy a high-quality omega-3 supplement from pretty much any well-versed grocery store around the globe. And if some of you now wonder if Scandinavian Bob takes omega-3 supplements, yes, I do. Number 4 is caffeine intake. Yes, many people think, for example, drinking coffee is bad for your reboot and your receptors because it can increase dopamine a tiny bit in the moment when drinking it. But in moderate amounts, it is not bad for your receptors, and it can actually increase the number of your dopamine D2 receptors. Yes, and this is a bit unlike other instant gratification things. And studies have shown that moderate caffeine intake elevates D2, D3 availability 10 to 15% because of A2A antagonism, preventing internalization. Now, I said moderate here, so just with the exercise, this won't work if you do way too much of it. And of course, now you want to know, how much is the sweet spot here then? Well, the evidence points to 200 to 300 milligrams per day being the sweet spot here. And just as a reference, that's about 1 to 2.5 cups of regular coffee a day. Now, if you have a tendency to get too addicted to coffee, or if you get jittery, or maybe you just don't like drinking coffee, then green tea or black tea will work just as well, maybe even better. Or then you can drink yerba mate, which is a South American herbal tea. And that's actually the famous neuroscientist Andrew Huberman's way of doing this. And number 5 is sun exposure. How about that? Yeah, this has to be one of the most pleasant ways to help your dopamine system recover. At least that's how I see it, because taking a walk on a sunny day is one of my favorite things to do, regardless of what it does to my brain. And just as long as you don't burn yourself in the sun, it is so good to take those walks. And they come with so many health benefits. Okay, so I hope you found this informative. And if you've already been interested in dopamine fasting for a long time now, but never really know how to structure a good fast, I have a whole dopamine fasting course where I show you how to build very effective protocols, and you can read more about that by using the link under the video. And oh hey guys, if you have a hard time cutting out all those adult sites, which are the absolute worst for your dopamine system, then take a look at this video right here to get some helpful advice on exactly that. This is Scandinavian Bob signing out for today. Consider subscribing for more, and I'll see you in the next one.